Have you been thinking about diversifying your property portfolio, but unsure how or where to invest next? SJR Property Group is a buyer's agency based in Perth, specialising in helping East Coast investors diversify their portfolios. We focus on helping our clients achieve their financial goals by investing in high-quality, high-cash-flow investment properties that are poised for long-term capital growth. If you've been thinking of investing in the WA market, the team at SJR have feet on the ground and are here to help. Visit sjrpropertygroup.com.au or call us today on 1300 757 774 to chat with an expert.
This is a Momentum Media production.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show, the podcast by investors for investors.
Hi, good day, everyone. Hey, going? Phil Tarrant here, host of the Smart Property Investment Show, here to talk finance, which we do a couple of times every single month. And everyone would be aware that the Reserve Bank of Australia lifted rates again at the start of June. And a lot of people didn't think it, watching a lot of commentary online around it, economists and other smart people talking about it, just saying this is what's going to thrust potentially Australia into a recession, or at least a technical recession as a result of it. Some people are calling a 50% chance of that taking place purely because of this ongoing spikes in interest rate. A lot of people point to inflation numbers as a driver of this current interest rate environment we're operating within. The Reserve Bank of Australia trying to get inflation under control. So the criticisms around trying to combat inflation with rate rises is that the inflation rate as of today, or say the end of last month in May versus the same time last year, it's a lot lower. The issue with inflation is that it's annualized. So it still looks really high, which is a hangover from the period past rather than where we are right now. So whether or not Reserve Bank Australia continues to attempt to beat inflation, which is going to be sticky, it's going to be with some time, with further interest rate rises, is to be seen, and we'll continue to cover it on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, no doubt. But that's a very sort of brief insight into where we are right now. The banks, some of the banks are still saying there will be at least one, maybe two more rate rises. I think ANZ, for example, is saying there'll be two more rate rises. Who knows? But I think the consensus is at a point in time next year, we should start seeing them come down. Whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. It depends what inflation and other environmental factors are at that point in time. Irrespective, as a property investor or someone with a home loan, you have no ability really to decide or influence what the Reserve Bank of Australia is going to do. And I think they're really clearly trying to show their independence against the government, whether or not the government is giving too much of a read to the RBA on what they want them to be doing. There is this sense of independence, and they operate independently, irrespective of who's in government. It's a tough situation for the government to be to manoeuvring through right now. They've inherited this period of rising rates in the highest rate environment we've had in 11 years. So we'll watch this space. But what you can control is what you do about it if you have a home loan, and that is absolutely speaking to your mortgage broker to help ensure that you are paying as cheap as possible rate that you can, that you're taking active, being proactive in your finances. So I speak to my mortgage broker often. I bring them onto the podcast, have a chat. The team over at Finny Mortgages, finny.com.au, they're working with me right now and doing a whole bunch of refinancing stuff, getting it off P&I into interest only, just to help with some cash flow. But we're not talking about me today. We're talking about, we've got a great case study. Joining me, Eva Lawrence from Finny Mortgages. Eva, how you going? You well?
Sure. Yeah, good. Thank you.
So we had a real, very, very quick chat off air, and you gave me just a real snapshot of today's conversation. And I'm gonna frame it as the accidental investors. So there's a lot of proactive people who tune into the Smart Property Investment Show. They're on a wealth creation journey through leveraging property to do that. Some of them have one property, two properties. Some people I know have 90 properties. It's a very different cross sector. One of those people I know with a lot of properties is looking at their interest rates constantly. It's a full-time job. He's got people working on this to ensure that his rates are as competitive as possible. But what we often forget is that most people's relationship with debt, Eva, is the loan that they have on the home that they live in. So the principal place of investment, or to call them owner-occupiers. So this is largely the great Australian dream is to own your own home.
Yeah, I guess
the great Australian dream is to own 20 investment properties. That's only a very small cohort of Australians who, I think 1 in 8, invest in property by memory. So just to be able to invest in property is a good thing. And to have heaps of properties is, you're a very small cohort. I think only 20,000 people own 6 or more investment properties. So it is a small sector. But what is a big sector is a third of Australians who are paying off their mortgage on their principal place of residence. And often they overthink and overlook the interest rate on their loan and trying to make that as accessible and as affordable as possible. Do you get a lot of phone calls for people just wanting to refinance their own occupier loan, Eva?
Yeah, look, it's part, I guess we get a lot of investors, but most of them would also have a home. And it's part of, I guess, the overall strategy to look at everything and make sure each loan is on the most suitable, product and interest rates. And obviously the interest rate on your home isn't tax deductible. So that's really the one that you should pay attention to.
Yeah, you should pay attention to it. And most property investors probably have a principal place of residence. For many property investors, they've leveraged their principal place of residence in order to become a property investor. We speak quite a lot about that. And that is for the purpose of creating wealth. But your principal place of residence, there are some really smart ways you can minimize the cost to hold that property. Now, the main recommendation for your principal place of residence is you want to pay the debt off. You want to get rid of that debt so it's unencumbered. So at a point in time, you have an unencumbered house to live in, and that should set yourself up or reduce or minimize those costs when you retire. Now, that was once upon a time the great Australian dream. Your 25, 30-year mortgage and you pay your home off over 30 years, paying down the principal as you go, and then the interest connected with it. Now, when you look at that, and it's a lesson for anyone, look at the curve of how quickly you pay the principal off at the start of a loan versus how quickly you pay the principal off at the end of the loan. And that is the nature of P&I mortgages. But if you're not yet focusing on, or you haven't really looked at your principal place of residence mortgage for some time, I'd probably have a really good look at that. And to Eva's point, interest repayments on your principal place of residence is not tax deductible. So I know a lot of people keep their cash Eva offsetting their principal place of residence to minimize their interest repayments. And that cash sits there until they're ready to buy an investment property. Now, the couple we're going to have a chat about today, Eva, weren't interested in investing in property. Is that correct? But they ended up becoming a property investor for the purpose of trying to pay down their principal place of residence faster. Now, this is interesting. Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's right. So they came to Finny just calling, they're listening to podcasts, but not really to invest at all. It's just in general, they're interested in, I guess, in managing their money properly. So they are great at budget. They're great at not having any debts. And their home loan at this stage, or anyway, when I spoke to them, was only at $335,000. So it's quite a small mortgage these days. So they're really good at that. But they have no interest in investing. They just want to get rid of the debt and hoping that they could retire maybe a little bit earlier than they have to. And that's all they want to do, all they want to achieve. And they came to us not to invest, but knowing that we look at mortgages and that we're good at it to... can we do any better on the interest rate?
So how big was their loan, Eva?
So it's 334. So I apologize there. Phil, I put in the note 600, but it was 334 at the time. Yeah,
$334,000. Yeah. Okay. And where was their property? Was it Sydney?
So they bought a property, it was almost 10 years ago in Penrith. So that's Western Sydney. Yeah, and that's where they lived since.
Out in Penrith. Cool place, Penrith. So I reckon a house in Penrith would be, I'm guessing, but say it's a brick home, it's probably worth sort of $750,000, $800,000.
Yeah, so we had it valued and it came back just over $800,000.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. Yeah. See? Good. I do know what I'm talking about for all those people that say otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's not in the notes. I'm just sort of assuming that. So under $400,000 on a $800,000 home. So it's an LVR under 50%. And the goal is they want that completely paid off so they can retire to the other great Australian dream, I think, these days is to hitch up your caravan to your full drive and drive around Australia when you're retired in your 50s or 60s. So maybe that's what they're aiming for. Were they high income earners, this couple, Eva?
I guess they're the average in terms of income. So she's a school teacher, so she was on roughly $90,000 a year. And Michael works as a mechanic. He's been there since was 18 years old in the same shop there, and he was on 87.
Okay, so pretty sort of
I think it's a median
Aussie couple, income. Pretty standard, and that's representative of how most of Australia is. So it's a really good case study for us to look at. So they came to Finny after listening to this podcast, just going, "Hey, we just want a strategy to pay off our mortgage faster. So let's learn about what they did. I imagine you got them a cheaper rate, but they did some other stuff. We'll just go to a quick break. Stay with us, everyone. Back in a moment.
Are you feeling the strain of high mortgage repayments? Refinancing with Finny Mortgages can help you save big on your home loan and ease the burden on your finances. Our team of expert brokers specialises in helping Australian investors find the best possible rates. Refinance with Finny Mortgages today and start saving. Visit finny.com.au or call us now at 028 866 2444 to chat with an expert.
Welcome back. Phil Tarrant here from Smart Property Investment. Have a chat with Eva from Finny Mortgages around some accidental investors who ended up investing in property to pay off their principal place of residence faster. So before the break, they've come to you. They want a solution to pay off their mortgage faster. So what was the recommendation? How did you go through the process of, what was the approach to determine the best outcome for these mortgage holders?
Yeah, so all they were doing at this stage, so they had the mortgage for quite some time. They never refinanced it. So the interest rate they were paying was quite high, and they never really sort of renegotiating with their own bank. And when they tried anyway, just after we spoke, they didn't really help much. All they were doing really is trying to have as much as they could in their offset account, which is a great option, and also trying to repay a bit extra every month. But with, as we know, the rates going up, it's becoming difficult for most people, not only to make their repayments, but also to pay extra. So that's what they were doing. But outside of that, they don't have any debts. They're really good at managing their money. They don't have like frivolous, pastime or whatever it is. So they have quite a bit in their offset, but they just want that there for rainy days. So that wasn't being used. So I guess, as everyone can think, we refinanced their mortgage on a better rate. So that was the first thing. It's easy to do. Most people will be able to do that. There's always a better rate out there. But the other thing we did that I think most people wouldn't think of is when you refinance, most of the time people would refinance you to a longer term than what you have. And that obviously make you pay your mortgage for longer, but also ends up having you paying more interest over the life of your loan. So what we did, instead of refinancing it for 17 years, which was the remaining term, we actually lowered that to 15 years. So just by doing that, that would just get rid of 2 years worth of their mortgage and forcing them, I guess, to pay a little bit extra every month. And having also a lower rate on their mortgage, that would be saving them $120 a month that they can actually but put back in their mortgage every month. So a little bit of tweaking there. At the end of the day, would save them probably three years worth of their mortgage just by doing that.
It's crazy when you start looking at those small little tactical implementations, how it can really save you a lot of money and pay for your mortgage faster. And one of those things is, and you pay a little bit more money, a little bit more higher interest rate for a fully featured home loan, including offsets. But an offset is a great way to park your money. And in particularly in this environment, if you're paying a mortgage rate of sort of 6 to 7%, you're getting 6 to 7% on your money if it's parked in an offset. And the way that works is that if your interest only loan, say you've got a $100,000 mortgage and you have $100,000 in the offset, it means that you're paying no interest. If you've got a $100,000 home loan and $90,000 in your offset, it means you're paying interest on $10,000. So this is how it works. For a owner-occupier home principal place of residence at a P&I level, if you have $200,000 on your home loan and you have $100,000 in your offset, it means that you're paying interest on the $100,000. If you have it fully offset, it means that you're not paying any interest. So if you keep your repayments the same as what they were without any offset benefits, it means you just pay the principal down faster, and it means you clear the debt quicker. Now, there's two good reasons for that. Number one, you can remove that debt pretty quickly and retire if you want to do that, or have an unencumbered asset. Or if you're paying down the principal part of the mortgage faster, it means you've got more equity in the home loan, and that equity can be used for other wealth creating benefits, or you can use it to go on holiday. Completely up to you. So if you're not really familiar with how offsets work, speak to your mortgage broker. Absolutely. I'm sure the team over at Finny Mortgage would be happy to chat to you about how you can actually use it as a tool. If you've got money sitting in a savings account and you have a home loan, get it offset as quickly as possible. You're going to get a lot more bigger bang for your buck. So what did you get the interest rate there? So you refinanced the home loan. You didn't just try and get a cheaper rate with the current lender they were with. Why did you go down that pathway?
Yeah, we tried because they actually liked the bank. Because they've been there for a long time. Everything was set up there. So it would have been easier for them to stay there and just change things around there, but they just didn't come to the party. So we refinanced the mortgage, reduced the term, got a better rate. So at the time, they were on 6.24% with their bank, and we got it at 5.59. So that's quite a bit of a drop there.
That's some time ago, though. Now, I would imagine, like, I jump at that rate right now. That sounds great.
Yeah,
6.24.
Yeah, look, it's an owner-occupier rate, so it's a bit less than investing, but still, yeah, that was only a few weeks ago. It would be a little bit more now, of course, but still good, I guess. So, of course, we had the offset there. We actually also set up the repayment weekly instead of monthly.
Okay.
So that's not a huge difference, but again, you paying the principal down every week. So the interest that you'll be paying every week is also getting lower by the week and not by the month.
And they just set that up as a direct debit, and it's just
debit. Yeah, and then we added $30 a week extra to pay it off. So all of that really, that would save them roughly 3 years worth of their mortgage, which was already quite good, and that took maybe a week to set up from the time I spoke to them to the time we launched the application. That was, it's quite an easy scenario, I guess. But Michael is someone that's really, just doesn't stop at, okay, 3 years is good enough, but I'd love to do more. And was like, what else can I do? What else can I do? And then obviously, because we deal with investors all the time, I'm like, well, what about looking at an investment property? And then his reaction was like, oh, no, I don't care about this. That's not my thing. I guess he had this idea that you need to be quite wealthy to actually buy an investment property, whereas technically most people could buy an investment property. It's actually easier than buying your home. So most people should actually look at that and believe they can. So anyway, it wasn't a thing. And I still mentioned that buying investment property could actually help them get rid of their debt quicker. So he started to be interested and so we met with his accountant. He had a bit of a plan there set up for him. And then when he realized that buying investment property could actually probably get him to be debt free within 10 years, obviously his eyes lit up and said, yeah, let's do it.
And it makes a lot of sense. And, we're not recommending that people go and buy investment property. I think the position is that you should consider strategies in order to pay down your principal residence. And one of them that might work for you is to pigeon pair it with an investment property. And your accountant's obviously someone you should be chatting to about this. But you sit there and just go, that doesn't make sense. I want to pay off my principal place of residence faster, so I'm taking on more debt. And people just go, that's sort of counter-cyclical, right?
Yeah.
So let's break that down. We'll just go to another break. Stay with us. Back in a moment.
Are you on the lookout for your next investment property? Smart Property Investment and Pure Property Investment have done the research for you on where the hottest up-and-coming suburbs for 2024 are and where you should invest for the best return. The report is completely free to download. Visit smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Don't make any moves until you've read the report. Take your next step with all the facts, backed by research and industry experts.
Welcome back. Phil Tarrant having a chat with Eva from Finny Mortgages. So Eva, taking on more debt in order to pay down another debt faster. Now, the baseline logic of this, and a lot of Australians are accidental investors. They, and most Australians own between 1 and 2 properties. Now, I always say the reason why most investors only have between 1 or 2 properties because they typically buy the wrong property first, and it means they can't do more. Right. The other side of that coin is that they only need 1 or 2 to meet the strategy that they have, and that is to own your own home unencumbered as fast as possible to give you choice and retirement. So it's a really, really good strategy. And I imagine a lot of people who tune in this podcast, Eva, fall into that.
Yeah.
Now, the logic of this is that you can only do so much on your principal place of residence. We spoke about offsets, and you can pay more into it by money that you manufacture through other activities, your work or some sort of side hustle. It's hard graft, right? You've got to do it. It's smart to do, but it can take time. The idea of pigeon pairing that with a investment property is that if you buy an investment property, the logic is you buy it at a particular amount and then it grows faster than the cost to hold it, or grows more effectively than the cost to hold it. Now, you got to remember with the investment property, someone pays the rent, right? So it's a bit harder in this market environment. But if you can hold that property at a cash neutral position, i.e. you don't need to contribute to it every single month, that means that you're getting all the upsides of it's increased in value. Now, the idea being that at a point in time, 10 years, you sell that property, you pay off what you owe on it, which is the debt component of it, and then you use the proceeds of that sale to pay off your principal place of residence, and then you are debt-free. That's the logic of it all, isn't it, Eva?
Yeah, that was exactly the plan that we set up with the accountant. So obviously we had a bit of objections there from them because they didn't want to use any of the cash that they had in the offset. They really had to get their head around how it would work. They also discovered, which they had no idea, that the equity they had in the place could be used to borrow everything. So the cost of the property itself, plus the stamp duty, plus the legal cost, plus whatever that might be involved into buying a property. So that's something they never knew could happen. So that's also something maybe we should make sure people understand, that if you do have a home that have equity, to invest you need zero. You don't need $1 saved. You can go ahead right now. So that was really good for Nicole and Michael to understand that, they could go ahead right now. They didn't have to use the savings they had in the offset, and they could start that strategy to work from right then. Didn't have to wait, didn't have to save more.
And this is when you hear people say, I've financed a property over 100%. So what they've done is they've used the equity in their principal place of residence. So that's the difference between what the property is worth versus what they own on it, which means that you need a bigger mortgage. So you get a bigger mortgage against your principal place of residence, which means that interest repayments will be higher and you need to contribute more to it. However, you use that money to pay for the deposit and all the other costs connected with an investment property. So as long as this couple was comfortable with the idea of having less equity in their home for the purpose of trying to pay that off faster. And again, it sounds counter-cyclical, but they could manage the increased repayments on their principal place of residence. That said, they still keep their buffer of having that cash ready should they ever need it. So how much did they buy the new property, or have they bought the new property yet, the investment property?
Yeah. So it's not settled just yet, but they've bought it. So we released at the time of the refinance, I think it was $90,000 worth of equity to cover 20% deposit plus cost. And we got a pre-approval for property up to $350,000. So they didn't want to have, something too big. That was sort of what they could handle, I guess, in their mind. And then they actually used the buyer's agents to find the right property, and they bought something for just under $350,000 in Perth, with a property that has, really good yield potential. So the property and the loan would be neutral. They wouldn't really cost them anything to hold the property. And there is good growth there in terms potentially for them to resell the property in 10 years and then pay off their debt completely.
And how much did it increase the repayments on their principal place of residence a month by adding $90,000 to the debt level?
So we actually did a different split. So we didn't increase the home loan. We did a different split of $90,000 that is purely for investing. So it's also tax deductible.
Like a separate mortgage connected to the principal place of residence.
Secured by the home, but a different split. So it wasn't all mixed up together.
Okay, so they've got 3 loans now then?
3 loans, yeah.
Okay, so the $90,000, which is the equity component of their principal place of residence, and rather than just increasing the principal place of residence to withdraw that money, they've done a separate facility. So therefore, that is tax deductible. Otherwise, if you just topped up that's really smart way you structure that, Eva. The way, instead of topping up the principal place of residence, that would be non-tax deductible debt. It would just mean a higher debt level on your principal place of residence. So they can pay that down separately as they like. And then there is the new loan on the new property. Do you think, are they going to target that $90,000 to get rid of that quickly, or it's good for them to have that as a tax deductible debt that they can leverage?
So we set that up,
finances.
Those two loans. So the home is on principal and interest. The $90,000 is on interest only. And there is still some banks that would do interest only for 10 years, which is what we've done. So they don't have to think about it for 10 years.
Who does that? Who does interest only for 10 years? Normally you only get 5.
So we went with Virgin Money. They do 10 years. Yeah. And they've got really good rates at the moment. So
interest only. Okay. And were they considered as property investors for that $90,000 or owner occupier for that $90,000?
Yeah, no, investment. Yeah, different speed for investment. But yeah.
But so they've got a sharp rate, even though they're. Who did you put the
rates? Yeah, the rates would be investment rate. Yes.
Investment rates. Yeah. Okay. And did you use one lender to do the whole 3 loans?
Yes, actually.
Is that Virgin Money? Is it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, there you go. It's a plug for Virgin Money.
Don't have to. We could have used to, but the rates were just great. And having 10 years interest only, it's also a way for Nicole and Michael not to really think about it. They just can.
And is the new investment property in Perth neutrally geared, or is it costing them money every month to hold?
So it's just not settled yet, but based on the numbers, it would probably cost them not much, like $80 a month.
Okay.
But that is before tax, right?
Before tax. So they're going to get negative gearing benefits out of it. And then also that $90,000, though, the rent on the new property doesn't help contribute to that. So they've got to contribute to the $90,000 repayments.
No, when I mean $80 negative, I guess that's for the whole investment.
Oh, the whole of okay. All right. So essentially they've financed that new property at probably about 110%, right? Because stamp duty, legal costs, etc. Do they do 80% lend or 90%? 80%. Yeah. So the rent is largely covering that negative $80, and that's $80 a month is $20 a week, which is pretty much half a takeaway for it's one pizza, right?
Yeah.
So most people can find that.
Yeah. So and then they understand as well that each year they will get money from doing the tax return, which they never got before, or very little. So they understand that they will get a bit of money there that will be put directly towards the home loan, and then reduce that completely. And then the plan from the accountant is within 8 to 10 years, the property that they bought in Perth should have enough equity that they can sell it and pay off the debt completely. The home that they have on their mortgage should be around 80 to 100K, so nothing much really left.
And they're still doing all the little bits, like paying a little bit extra. They're paying weekly on their principal place of residence. They're throwing more money in there where they can. They're still doing all that stuff.
Yeah, doing all of that. So that's set up to be automatic, so they don't really have to think about it or do it themselves, I guess. So that plus having the property within 8 to 10 years, they would be debt free, which is a lot quicker than the 17 years they had left when we first spoke. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was really funny. They've probably gone, that's great. We've got this. This is a great strategy. I bet you get a phone call in about 6 months' time and go, oh, we're thinking about buying another investment property. Happens all the time, doesn't it?
Probably, yeah. That happens a lot.
It's this realization of some say it's the 8th wonder of the world is compounding interest, but the 9th wonder of the world is leverage on residential real estate in Australia. When people have a comfort around it and they've got their stuff sorted out, they sit there and they start thinking about, okay, hang on a second, this property thing is about, a lot of people think, I invest in property so I'll build a big portfolio and then I'll sell half of it and I'll keep half of my investment portfolio unencumbered with debt and it'll provide me cash flow into retirement. The other side of things is, accidental investor is actually using investment property to pay down your principal place of residence. And it's a really smart way to go about doing it if you get it right, get it structured, and you get the right advice. Eva, that was really good. I enjoyed that. It's a lot of people will be listening to this going, yeah, I get it. I've been doing this anyway. Why are you talking about this? But I imagine a lot of people are tuning into this and they'll sit there and have a conversation in their car with their partner and just go, I've never thought about that before. Really? Is it that easy? It's not really costing them. It's costing them $80 a month in order to have an investment property. Now, some people would have done this, back in March or April of last year before interest rates started going up, thinking, hey, this is all right. It's not costing me too much a month. 11 rate rises on 4.1%. A lot of people are probably sitting there going, oh, wow, we've invested beyond our means. We can't, we're struggling making repayments. So this is the other side of the coin. So I would say that the numbers and the strategies is reasonably conservative that you've put in place there, in terms of overextending that. That's just my view of it. It's not advice or otherwise, but don't bite off more than you can chew is the thing, because it does change. And we were told there wouldn't be any rate rise until 2024 back in 2022. And it's a very different situation right now. And a lot of Australians are hurting, but it's the way it is. All right, Eva, that was really good. Maybe we've got to do a case study on someone that sort of maybe overextended back in early in 2021, 2022. And everyone's now talking about this interest rate cliff, which is just around the corner, accelerating quickly. I think a lot of loans come off in August and there's going to be a rude shock to a lot of people. So there is ways you can mitigate that and minimize it. Speak to your mortgage broker now. If you're coming off at a fixed rate at 2.5, 2.6, 2.3%, and you're going to be resetting at potentially 7%, That's at least twice as much as what you were paying on your interest repayments. The principal bit will be the same, but if it's interest only or the interest component, it's going to increase. And you only need to Google some of those numbers coming out. So if you're not yet thinking about this, start thinking about this, because there is time to start potentially mitigating as much as possible some of those issues around it. Eva, you're happy to have those chats with anyone, no doubt?
Yeah, of course. There's still a lot of options out there. There's actually quite good fixed rates at the moment, which are quite a bit lower than variable. So it's worth considering if you feel like you're a bit uncertain of, what it's going to be like in the next few years. I think it's worth looking at those.
What sort of fixed stuff do you see? What sort of fixed rates? P&I?
Well, the variable rates at the moment would be around the 6.3, right? And then we see
for owner-occupier or investment?
For investors.
Yeah.
And then you could probably fix it around the 5.8. So it's quite a bit of a difference, knowing that we're probably going to see a few more increase.
Yeah, it's when fixed rates are lower than variable rates, you start knowing you're getting towards the top of things. But
yes.
The issue is that if you fix now for 2 years at 5.8, you think you're saving money. But if rates start going down, I'll tell you what, when you're paying more for your mortgage and what it is a variable rate, horses for courses, you need to, if you need that certainty in your home loans every single month, fixed rates may be something you can look at. You can do split loans. So if you have, $1 million worth of debt, you can have half of it can be fixed interest only or fixed P&I, and the other half can be interest only loans. So, interest only works for many property investors. So, all right, Finni Mortgages, finni.com.au by memory, FINNI.com.au. Go and check it out. These guys will have a chat with you. Any questions or get on it. If you're worried, get on it. Don't put your head in the sand thinking it's all going to be okay. Take action, be proactive, and good mortgage broker can really be an enabler in this sort of environment. And it's just not about mitigating these issues. You can look for opportunities in this market as well. Eva, anything to conclude with? Any parting words of wisdom?
No, I think it's just, from this case, to me, it shows that you don't know what you don't know. Just go and talk to people that might have different ideas than you do. Michael's read so many books about budgeting and paying his debt faster, but yet he didn't think about, investing and paying weekly and these sort of things. So I think it's worth having a conversation with people that are experts in the field. You might not get anything out of it, but you might get a lot. So, yeah. Yep. Talk about it.
Increase your knowledge, increase your awareness. All right, nice one. Thanks, Eva. Remember to check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. If you haven't yet downloaded it, the Fast 50 report has been massive. Go and check it out. Just go to smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. The 50 suburbs that you need to be parking your money today for the best capital growth in 2024. Go and check it out. Like thousands of other Australians have downloaded that thing. Go and have a look. Get the cheat notes about how we've gone about putting that report together and how you can take action. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.